Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the African Comic Guy. It's been a minute, but I'm just working on a few things here and there, trying to, make this channel a little, a little intense, more intense, more fun, more engaging, you know what I mean? And I really believe we're actually on the path to a pretty good channel. But again, welcome back. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend, and we're here to talk about the Marvels and Marvels review. And let's just say it's not a pretty one. Now, like I said before, oh my God, this movie was, to call it a disappointment would be an understatement. It honestly would be an understatement because this is the first time outside of watching Thor, right? Thor: Love and Thunder. That movie that was to me absolutely, it was so bad, really so bad. And it kind of feels like, I don't know if it set this up because this movie didn't really have a lot of hype coming from the previous Captain Marvel. Even though the previous Captain Marvel had good numbers, did very well, people didn't like it. People did not like it because I don't know if they just this disconnect with Brie Larson. I don't know if it's just that disconnect or this Disney agenda that they've been trying to push since that movie, right? Trying to make everything woke. And like I've said before, there's nothing wrong with being woke, but there's a problem when you mess with the content, right? The creative material, right? Because you have source material. Everything comes from comics. That's how it's supposed to come. But when you change everything, so going into watch this movie, I didn't really have any expectations. It's been a year of really bad movies, DC and Marvel, so I didn't really have any expectations, and this movie was boring, and oh my God, where am I going to start? Now, again, I've always talked about the three pillars that actually make a movie a really good movie. One being good directing, two being good casting, and three being good storytelling. This movie had really good casting. I really believe that. With Brie Larson playing Captain Marvel, Kamala Khan, if you've watched the show on Disney, and then obviously with Rambo, again from WandaVision. Those three characters, they're pretty good. The acting was actually pretty good. It wasn't really that bad. The directing also wasn't that bad. I mean, I could give it a 3 out of 5. So it wasn't really that bad, but the story was just blah. It really was. It wasn't engaging. You felt like they were trying to do so many different things at the same time. You can't really follow. It was even the first movie wasn't that good, but at least it was consistent, right? You kind of knew, okay, this is a story we're telling, right? Girl overcomes this, becomes this. In this movie, it felt like you're trying to tell three different stories at the same time because it was sad because this movie bombed. I'm recording this on Monday, not even on Thursday when it came out, because I actually watched it on Friday. And I wanted to record it that day, but I just got busy with things going on the weekend. But I also wanted to see how the numbers would be because I knew this movie would bomb. I really did. From the previews, from everything coming into it, I knew this movie would bomb. But let's just talk about a few good things in the movie, and then we're just going to end with everything that was just absolute nonsense from it. Good, bad, and maybe hopeful at the end. Okay, so let's talk about the good. You didn't really have a whole lot of good, but one of the coolest things was Kamala Khan's family. I mean, they were funny. They were actually funny. Kind of reminded me of Blue Beetle, how with his family, talking about George Lopez, how George Lopez became this. I'm pretty sure they didn't really mean for him in that movie to become as big as he did or as important of a role, right? And he became big. That family became this crucial thing in the entire story, and you fell in love with him. Kamala Khan's family was funny. They were interesting. They were fun to watch. You could tell there was chemistry between these characters and actors. So that was fun. Captain Marvel, Brie Larson herself, she was okay. Outside of a few bad CGIs, right? She was okay. Rambo, again, these three characters, right? They played their roles very well, but like you could tell they were just the story. The writers were trying to really get them to align, right? Get these characters to align, like, and you could just tell. There's one of the things people loved about the Avengers is because when the stories were told, they kind of meshed in together, right? You didn't feel like one, was trying to be forced over the other. You didn't feel like they were trying to make this character feel like this character. You know what I mean? The stories actually were organic. These relationships kind of they connected together, right? And they formed this team. And it kind of felt like at the end, if these guys had met in different circumstances, they still would have been able to form a team. You know what I mean? Because they formed this chemistry. You could feel that these writers are trying to force the chemistry into these girls, into these ladies. And unfortunately, it just created this boring, monotonous, redundant story. And unfortunately, I knew from that moment on this movie was going to bomb. I really did. And people were not going to like it. This movie was a little over 100 minutes. It felt like they cut it short too. It felt like, we're now going into the negative parts. I told you the good things wouldn't be that much, but it felt like they cut this story, right? They cut it. Because this movie went through a lot of reshoots, right? A lot of editing. So you could tell that there's so much that was left out of this movie. You know what I mean? Because again, when you watched it, you could tell these writers are trying to kind of paint this narrative, right? But it wasn't going there. Every single time you try and follow this, something else would happen. So unfortunately, this movie, oh my God, Nick Fury, oh man, Samuel L. Jackson. I loved his character as Nick Fury from the moment we saw him at the end of the first Iron Man. Um, it's sad to see, oh my God, the humor. Humor is fun, but there's humor that actually works and is planned and actually has timing, right? This movie has humor that has, oh my God, the timing is just awful. So awful. And there's really not a lot to say. I'm not even going to give out spoilers because I mean there are some post credit scenes. One of them, if you love X-Men, you'll see it, but it's in CGI, which makes no sense because they could have pulled out. Man, this movie was just bad. It really was, and it's really really sad to say, and it's a sad state of affairs actually for Disney right now and Marvel because fans don't have faith in their content right now, and this movie will show you. So this movie fell short, and the numbers tell it. I mean, as of today, in a 4 day stretch, it's actually the worst performing Marvel movie in its first opening weekend since the MCU started back almost 12, 13 years ago with Iron Man. Actually, sorry, with the Hulk, Incredible Hulk. This movie, oh my God. I think it made just a little over 40 something million domestically, another 60 something million internationally. I think it came right under 115 million in that 4 day stretch. And it did worse than Ant-Man, Quantumania. And it bombed, really did, and you have certain narratives that are being formed right now as to why you have certain people blaming men for not being supportive of this movie, which is crazy because the reality and the truth is most comic fans happen to be men and boys. It's the truth. Now, obviously, there are a lot of women and girls who love comics. It's the truth. But the majority of your audience is men and boys, right? When you don't cater to your audience reacts. When you try to woke everything up, remember everything has we have a source material. Comics. You pull everything out of comics. When you change because you want to push a certain agenda, then you cannot fault your audience from saying, we're not going to watch this crap. The problem is not what it's just you're changing, because these characters work. Captain Marvel in the comics is very powerful. Kamala Khan, they are all very powerful characters. They all play different roles in the Marvel universe, especially in comics. When you show them in the right way, people respond. People responded every single time you put out Iron Man, Thor, Captain, because why? Source material. You kept to the source material, but when you try to change certain things to fit a certain agenda, a certain narrative that you're trying to push, the audience responds. And they did. This movie, I honestly wouldn't watch again. And I love comics. If you guys know me, you know me. I love comics. I've watched the first Iron Man. I can't even tell you how many times I've watched it. Man of Steel, BVS, Justice League. I've watched them so many times. Thor, Dark World. I've watched it. I don't even know how many times. Endgame, Infinity War. I've watched those movies. Blade. I've watched those movies so many different times. And then there's certain movies I wouldn't watch again. And this is one of those where I wouldn't watch again. And to be quite honest with you, I don't regret spending the money because obviously this is what I love. I love talking about comics. So obviously I was going to watch it regardless. But every single time you watch a really bad movie coming out, you feel like you wasted your money. And I don't feel like I did because I have content to talk about. I have things to talk about. But I would, I always recommend you watch or you don't watch. And I don't want to tell you not to watch it because the crazy thing is I would love for it to do, if it's a bad movie, I would love for it to do well because movies doing well gives studios capital and the incentive to put out more content. But this movie, unfortunately, I can't tell you to go watch it because you're not going to enjoy it. If you love comics, you're not really going to enjoy it because you're going to see a movie that makes absolutely no sense within the story. And it's really sad to say because man, sad state of affairs over there at Marvel right now. Anyway, in the end, my rating for this movie is definitely, I don't even know, out of 5, I don't even know if I can give it a 1. It is bad. And again, it all comes down to what are you trying to do, right? What are you trying to put out to fans to watch, right? Your fan base for the last 10 to 15 years has been there because of good storytelling. You've been able to connect and be consistent. And then over the last few years, DC and Marvel, it's not just Marvel, DC and Marvel have just put out really bad movies that were really hyped up. And as a fan base, we want these movies to be good. But now we're all jaded because you've basically alienated your fans, right? Because now we have zero expectations for good movies coming out. Aquaman is coming up in December. It looks good. The trailer, everything about it looks good, but unfortunately there's so many things within this movie, right, with reshoots, and it doesn't really bode confidence. It doesn't bring out confidence. And we're sitting here going, should I waste money to go watch it? As a fan, you want to go watch it. But what kind of expectations do you have? I have no expectations right now. I really don't. Just because of what we've gotten over the last few months, over the last 2 years, on both sides, on DC and on Marvel, And unfortunately for Marvel, they've had a run, really, really a run of bad movies. And with DC, it's really simple. You changed the arc, you decided to copy and paste, and it didn't work out. Marvel had a successful, right, arc. And then they decide to go a different way. They decide to go mainstream and try to do certain things to cater to push an agenda. And this is exactly what happens when you decide to move away from what works. You get trash. So anyway, 0.5 out of 5. That's my rating for this movie. It is really sad, but it's just the truth. And you can't sugarcoat it. And I didn't go in expecting a good movie. I expected something decent. But kind of like The Flash, absolute trash. And it's sad to say because I really would have loved to see these characters evolve over the next stage of the MCU. You know what I mean? The next storytelling, the next phase of what they're trying to do. But unfortunately, I don't see it moving forward. I don't even see the TV shows coming back because this is what you've just done. You've destroyed everybody's expectations. So I don't even know what's going to work. But anyway, this is just my 2 cents for this movie. If you're going to go watch this movie, go watch this movie. Be open-minded, but don't be surprised if you leave that theater going, ugh. But anyway, as always, this is the African Comic Guy. See you on the next one. Peace.